first of all, Eric, do you think that fights are a good thing or a bad thing?
Bad thing.
Okay, see, that's where you're wrong. And here's why. Fighting is the attempt to reconstruct order within a relationship. Okay, let me try that again. When two people fight, they're basically trying to reestablish order within the relationship, because obviously the reason people fight is because that order has somehow been tipped in one way or the other. Now you take any instance.
You're wrong.
How's that?
Fighting represents the fact that one party is refusing to change.
Ah, but see, here's where Eric's raising a very
Both
good point.
parties.
What happens when the lines of communication have broken down? And the fact of the matter is that there is such a thing called fair fighting. You've never had this class, have you? I'm about to teach Eric a class in fair fighting.
It's called a class in self-justification.
No, it's not a class. It's what?
Actually, I'm gonna sit over here and listen to whatever you're saying.
My drivel, as you like
You
to say.
go ahead and try and explain yourself.
All right, it's very.
Actually,
we can break this down into 9
Z
parts.
is gonna dig himself a hole. That's
I'm
what
digging myself a
we're
hole.
calling this.
If
segment.
anything, I'd like to explain this as most relationships, either between a man and a woman, or man, female, whatever have you. And so in that, when I'm talking about relationships, the majority of relationships that I'm making reference to are that of married couples or common law or what have you in that sense. Okay, so the fact is that fighting does occur, and it is by definition extremely healthy for people to fight. Many scientists have confirmed this fact through the release of endorphins, through the release of other chemicals. There's a reason why people have after fight sex. I mean, you know, like the makeup sex is so good, and the reason why is because all of those release of chemicals and neurons that are...
It's hard to say no when you got a broken nose.
Well, point being is that it is very natural for human beings to fight. I mean, you look at any other animal species on the planet, and every single animal species fights as well. Humans are no different. So with that, we have other challenges in our relationships, that being of the ability to communicate, which, of course, rises us above other animals, the primates, things like that. We can talk. I'm sitting here tonight talking to you, and through the wonderful use of technology, sharing my message through communication. But sometimes the lines of communications break down, and there's reasons for that. The first reason most times we have a fight is for stubbornness, and this is fairly basic. Most people, as a general rule, human beings don't like change. They like to resist change. We're very stubborn people. In fact, it's almost a genetic trait. The fact of it was the stubborn monkey that got the last apple off the tree. So in our development through the ages, it was the stubbornness and determination that has made the human being excel. But when it comes to communication, these things break down, and when they do, people can be stubborn, and this can unfortunately have serious setbacks when it comes to trying to communicate. Hold on one second, I just right there. Oh, the wonderfulness of live television. Number 2, when you're not willing to admit your fault. Now, this is kind of the same as stubbornness, but it's a different thing. It's when you know you're at fault, or you don't quite realize you're at fault, but you just don't want to say, I'm sorry, or, you know what, you could be right, or something like this. And like I say, it's kind of like being stubborn in its own way, but not really. You don't want to admit it's your fault, and it's pride. It's different from being stubborn. It's an emotion. So I mean that's where you can separate the two of them, the distinctiveness. One's useful, one's just a negative connotation. So number 3 is by comparison. When you're fighting with your spouse and stuff like this, it's very common to bring up things like, but your family did this, or you do this, or you did this like 5 years ago. Well, these comparisons really do nothing to help a fight. I mean, it's poor fighting, it's bad form, as they would say. and they contribute zero to the conversation. I mean, so when you're doing that, you've instantly lost, your credibility in the fight, and usually from there it degrades. So with that, number 4 is bringing up the past. Like you have a tendency to, well, he's cheated before, he'll do it again, or he cheated with some other woman, he'll do it with another woman. These things like that, I mean, these are very unhealthy, just jealous emotional responses. And so in that, I mean, it's a human response, not a healthy one, and in that it prevents the lines of communication. Number 6 is exaggeration. For the 50,000th time, I've told you to stop doing something. Really, if you need to exaggerate to make your point, then obviously your point isn't very strong in the first place. It could be because you're lacking a number 2. You're not willing to admit you might be wrong. When these, and I guess what I'm trying to say is when these things happen, the lines of communication break down, and you're no longer able to communicate with each other. 7 is lying. I mean, what's to be said? As soon as you start telling falsehoods or lying to the partner, or or to whoever you're trying to communicate with, then all credibility is lost. There's, even if they don't realize that you're lying, the communication has been destroyed. Any fundamentals of the communication, the ability to communicate in that sense, is flawed. So lying it's no good. 8, harsh words. Now, even I am very prone to realize that when I get mad, if I drop a couple F-bombs, people tend to listen. And holy smokes, watch me drop a couple. I'll even know how to drop them with flair, too. Fuck. It really does nothing to your conversation. And my mother used to tell me that the moment that you swear, you've lost all lack of control. And in that, I think, Mom, you're right.
Lack of control?
You've lost lack of control of your ability to communicate. So, harsh language, it really doesn't impress anybody but the boys you're drinking beer with, to be honest. And number 9 is explosive anger. Really? Like trying to make these kind of emotional outbursts. And I mean, let's be honest. There's times where you want to suddenly just get mad because you want to make a point, But as soon as you've done that, the lines of communication have once again been destroyed. And so these are, like 9 reasons why communication can break down between couples, or even any relationships. I mean, you can take these kind of things to any status of any relationships. And so finally, choose to listen before you speak. I mean, I guess the whole thing is, when you're trying to communicate to people, the biggest thing you have to do is you have to learn how to listen. And it's really hard as human beings to sit there and without trying to interrupt, without trying to make your point heard, because damn it, they're so just wrong, and if you could only just explain to them, but if you just sit there and listen, suddenly when it comes time for you to speak, they might just listen to you too.